Loud and long and clear. I love to laugh. It's getting worse every year. The more I laugh, the more I'm filled with glee. The more the glee, the more I'm a merrier me. The more I'm a merrier me.
Some people laugh through their noses, sounding something like this. Some people laugh through their teeth, goodness sakes, hissing and fizzing like snakes.
Some laugh too fast. Some only blast. Others they twitter like birds. Then there's the kind can't make up their minds.
When things strike me as funny, I hold it inside and squeak. As squeaker the sinner, I've got to let go with the ho and two. We love to laugh, loud and long and clear. We love to laugh, so everybody can hear. The more you laugh, the more we're filled with glee. And the more the glee, the more we're a merrier we. The more we're a merrier we.
Come, whoever you are welcome here. No matter your age, your size, the color of your eyes, your hair, your skin, you are welcome here. No matter your gender, whom you love, how you speak, or whatever your abilities, you are welcome here. You are welcome here, whether you come with laughter in your heart or tears in your eyes. You are welcome here. No matter what you have experienced in the past, no matter what awaits you in the future, you are welcome here. Whether you believe in God all of the time, some of the time, or none of the time, you are welcome here. This is a community of open minds, loving hearts, and willing hands.
Let's give Ella a hand. Yay, Ella! Thank you so much, Ella. And today is an intergen service, and we're experimenting with having our youth participate a little bit more in our services. And so you're going to see a couple more come up and help us out. Welcome, everyone. My name is Tom. My pronouns are he and him. I'm wearing a blue shirt. I have crazy, curly, brown hair, and I'm excited to be your worship leader today for the morning service. As you all know, Reverend Laura is enjoying her sabbatical, and she still has a couple months before she'll be back. She'll be back in the fall. We're excited today to have Sinnamon Wolfe be our guest speaker. Yay, Sinnamon! Super excited for her to participate and give us a sermon in a little bit. A few announcements. Today is the last day of the food drive, and as part of our altar decorations for the day, we decided to bring all the food up here. So congratulations for bringing a ton of food, guys. Look at all this food. And I love that it's like our altar as well. Like it's almost like we are bringing the food and it becomes sacred as we give it to those who need it. So thank you for bringing so much food. If anybody has any more, you can still bring it up here through the rest of today, and then that will be over. Want to make sure everybody's aware that next Sunday we will not be here in this building, so do not come to this building, or you will be the only one. You'll have a service of one by yourself. All of us will be down in the park. So for those who don't know, we usually, it's the same spot we've done in the past, Pavilion number 2 in Murray Park. Come and join us same time, 10 o'clock, for an outdoor service next week. With Reverend Monica, we'll be back again. We have Cam maybe wanting to give an announcement? No? Okay. All right, I had a maybe in here. Yes. Okay, great. Well, then in that case, it's time for us to share warmth of community. So please look around, find somebody who you may or may not know, shake hands, and let's chat with each other for just a moment, and then we'll sing our song.
Standing, if you wish. Let us light our chalice. Please repeat with me our chalice lighting words. We light this chalice
for the warmth of love, for the light of truth, and for the energy of action.
Stand.
Microphone going? There we go. Okay, it's time for all ages. So, time for all ages. I guess I said it twice. Go ahead and come up if you are young or young at heart. And we're going to have a fun little time for all ages. As the kids are coming up, I'm going to put out a little disclaimer. We're going to do something that is Harry Potter themed. Oh, and you know what? Actually, yeah, you don't even need these. Everybody just stand. Okay, everybody stand right here. Yeah, there you go. This is perfect. We're going to do something that's Harry Potter themed. And the first thing I wanted to say as the kids are coming up is just because we do something involving Harry Potter in any way doesn't mean we agree with everything the author has said. Right? Just have to put that out there. Okay, thank you. All right. So, but in any case, this is just a little snippet of Harry Potter that has a really great little life lesson. So, kids, I have a big announcement, okay? It turns out Harry Potter is real.
Really?
Okay? That's what I'm saying. Magic is real, okay? And not only that, but something has happened this week, and I need to basically deputize all of you as wizards and witches just for the next few minutes, okay? You are all, and if you brought up your spoon, that's perfect, because everybody needs to pretend to have a wand, okay? So everybody, maybe if you don't already have one, just pretend like it's there in your hand, okay? You've got a wand. Make sure you don't hit anyone, okay? Maybe give a little bit of space, okay? If you're waving especially if it's an actual spoon. Okay, there you go. Okay, now, I need to teach you guys a spell, okay? And I guess, yeah, like for now, let's just aim off to the side so we don't actually, affect anybody, okay? Everybody aim over there, and I want you to wave it and say ridiculous. Here we go. Ridiculous. Oh, you can even pretend. Yeah, there you go. Okay, one more try. It's got to be with gusto. Here we go. Ridiculous. Excellent, excellent. Okay, now does anybody know what this spell does?
No.
Anybody familiar? Oh my gosh.
It means you look ridiculous. I have no clue.
That's right. You make something look ridiculous. Ayla, what are you going to say? Were you going to say the same thing?
Basically.
Oh, okay. All right. There you go. So, yes, you make something look ridiculous. So, guys, I don't know who has heard of a boggart? Has anybody heard of this? Harry Potter, I'm starting to get really old now. I think that the youth know about Harry Potter when they don't actually. Okay, wait, Ella, you know. What's a boggart? Do you know?
A boggart is something where it depends on, it depends on what you are scared of.
That's right.
And then it comes out as the thing that you're scared of.
That's right. Exactly.
And the way to kind of scare it off is to laugh at it.
Exactly. The way to scare off the thing that is super scary is to laugh at it. That's right. So you already know the whole thing. So guess what, guys? We have caught a boggart. There's a real boggart here in the building right now. Okay? And I need your help. No, it's not me. I'm scary? Do I look scary? Thanks, guys. Great. No, not me. Oh my gosh, there's a real boggart. Okay, now, did everybody practice? Here it comes. It's scary. Look how scary this is. Oh my gosh. Everybody get out your wands. Get out your wands. Here we go. All together on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Ridiculous. Oh my gosh. Yay. It's Celia. Come on up, Celia. Everybody give her a group hug. Okay, there we go. Yay, Celia. Thanks for helping. Look at that. It turned out to just be silly Celia the whole time. Now, what do you guys... Everybody stay here for just 1 second, and I want to talk about this. What do you think... So now the real Harry Potter part is over, okay? What do you think that this has to do with our actual lives? How could we use this? Isaac?
Sometimes scary things are actually not that bad.
Right? Sometimes scary things are not actually that bad. Yeah.
Sometimes getting scared is fun.
Sometimes getting scared is fun. There's a fine line there, right? Sometimes, why do we even have horror movies, right? It's because people enjoy getting scared. It's true. Anything else? How does this apply to our lives? What can we do in our lives? We can be brave. That's a great answer. Yes.
I'm very scared. I get scared easily.
Right? I think we all get scared sometimes. Absolutely. It's a normal thing. What were you going to say? Did you have something?
I'm scared of my sister, but I'll always be with her.
She can scare her sister, but she can always be with her. That's a really great. Oh, that's very sweet. That's very sweet. Okay, Isaac, one more.
It's not super hard to find the funny side of scary things. There's always a good side of the scary thing.
There's always a good side of the scary thing. Exactly. There's always something funny, even in some of the craziest and hardest things that we have to go through, right? And sometimes finding that funny thing is what really, really makes it possible for us to get through. Okay, thanks, guys. Now, it's an intergen service, so we'll have you all go back and sit with your parents. Thank you, everybody. And special thanks to Celia. Great job.
This community, our church, and its many ministries are only made possible by the gifts you give of your time, your talent, and your treasure. Many of you pledge monthly to support our work, and for this we are grateful. Your gifts help to ensure that we are able to live our values of love and justice in the world outside. Part of our ministry at South Valley includes sharing our Sunday worship offerings with a charitable organization that aligns with our principles and values. Our partner for July and August is Encircle. Since 2017, Encircle's mission has been to bring families and communities together to enable LGBTQ+ youth to thrive through safe, supportive, affirming spaces and services. By creating welcoming environments, homes that feel like family, providing affirming therapy at low or no cost, connecting peers and families through supportive programs, empowering communities via research and educational resources. Please join me in reading our offertory words. We are this church, we are its hands, its heart, its voice. Together we share the love of this community and sustain it with our gifts. We will now accept the offering. For those at home, you're invited to use the giving link in the online order of service. I invite the ushers to come forward at this time.
Okay, I just need to warn you all that you're going to be part of this musical number, okay? I expect you to sing the chorus. I'm going to sing the verse, okay? Here we go. You find the fun and snap, the job's a game. And every task you undertake becomes a piece of cake, a lark, a spree. It's very plain to see that a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down, the medicine go down, medicine go down. Just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down in the most delightful way. A robin feathering his nest has very little time to rest whilst gathering its bits of twine and twig. Though quite intent in his pursuit, he has a merry tune to toot. He knows a song will move the job along. For a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down, the medicine go down, medicine go down. Just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down in the most delightful way. The honey bee did fetch his nectar from the flowers to the comb, never tire of ever buzzing to and fro, because they take a little snip from every flower that they sip, and hence they find their task is not a grind, just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down, the medicine go down, medicine go down. Just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down in the most delightful way.
For all that we have received and have found the courage to give, may we be truly grateful. May these gifts be a blessing to South Valley and to Encircle. And may all that we have given for the Golden Celery Food Drive competition, we are truly grateful. Thank you for your generosity. So I wanted to give a little explanation about kind of how Mary Poppins and stand-up comedy came together. I had thought about the topic of stand-up comedian and their role as prophet, and by prophet I mean kind of the Old Testament concept of someone who sees that something is happening in society that's not okay. And prophets call their role in scriptures to invite the society to repent or to improve, to be better. They're inviting them to be in more alignment with God. So that's kind of the concept of what I was thinking about. And then we were trying to come up with music, and I Love to Laugh came about, and I also really loved A Spoonful of Sugar. And then we watched Mary Poppins, and I was like, I think this actually fits better than I thought it was going to. So I'm going to get into that a bit more, but I wanted to introduce myself. Again, my name is Sinnamon Wolfe. For those of you who don't know me, I have been coming to South Valley for 10 years now this summer, and it's been great. I am a short, pale woman with curly hair. I am wearing a bright yellow shirt and a shade of lipstick that is practically perfect in every way. My background is actually in theology and chaplaincy. I have 3 degrees in theology, a bachelor's in religious studies, and 2 master's degrees. And I focused the majority of my career on chaplaincy. I did a chaplain residency in a hospital in Arizona for 2 years, and I worked as a hospice chaplain up in the Weber, Davis, and Box Elder counties for 6 years. I currently work as an office manager for a nonprofit that provides professional chaplaincy to St. Mark's Hospital and other hospitals in the area, as well as a chaplain training program called Clinical Pastoral Education. So if you were here last Sunday, you heard from Amy Russian, who is one of our chaplain residents. So I have the lucky privilege every day to witness chaplain students kind of coming into their own and really developing their chaplain skills. So naturally, with that background, it makes sense that I would talk to you today about comedy. I'm going to talk to you about comedy, not grief. I might be more qualified to talk about grief or emotions or spirituality because I've dedicated my entire adult profession to that field. And I have dedicated 0 time to stand-up comedy. But stand-up comedy for me is actually a spiritual experience, or at least it can be sometimes. I studied religion because I was wounded by religion as a child, and I needed to heal from it. I didn't know it at the time that when I was going to school, that's why I was studying religion. I thought that I was following a divine calling that would prepare me to better serve God and to minister to others. And there are those who would probably agree with that's exactly what has happened, and to a certain extent I do as well. But I also really do believe that I was following a different calling, a call to heal the little wounded child that was deeply afraid. See, I grew up in a religious school that taught me to be very afraid. I was afraid of hell. I was afraid of the devil and the demons. I was taught that salvation was difficult. Only by believing very specific things and saying specific prayers and living this very strict life could I be saved. I was taught about the end times, and at a young age I was shown a film depicting the end times, and it scared me so much that I would get stomach aches worrying about it. And through it all, I unfortunately felt like I couldn't talk to my parents about it. Because I was taught at that school that my parents, my family, they didn't fit into this narrow definition of saved. So I thought at a very young age that everyone I loved and everyone who loved me was going to hell. So I had a lot of healing to do. And I did that healing through gradual deconstruction that took place in the form of many, many years of theological education, and eventually through counseling and mental health medication. That healing all took place, however, as an adult. But before I was an adult, I was a child, and I was scared, and I was confused, and I needed relief. And I found that relief in, oddly, the comedy, of all places. On a trip to my grandparents' house in Washington State, I stumbled upon their video collection of the comedian Red Skelton. He is, yeah, that's him right there. He is an older comedian. He is best known for a sketch comedy show that was very popular during the 50s and 60s. And I'm older, but I'm not that old. But I loved Red's goofy and slapstick comedy. And I began asking my parents for his VHS tapes of his shows and his stand-up routines. And on the nights that my fears were preventing me from sleeping, I would turn on his videos. The silliness and the laughter would distract me and calm me enough that I could relax and go to sleep. Comedy was one of the first places that I found safety from the fears that lurked in my own mind and in my own heart. When I was in college, I became a big fan of the comedian Susie Eddie Izzard. At the time, she called herself Eddie Izzard and has since asked to be called Susie. This was in the early 2000s, before the social conversation about trans identity really took hold. So Susie at that time identified as a transvestite, and she has since come out as transsexual and asked that she be called Susie. Susie was one of the first people I had ever come across who talked openly about gender identity. She would wear feminine clothes on stage while making jokes about religion. And this was different for me. It represented a huge shift in my own thinking and my own spiritual journey. I had started out as this scared child, afraid that I had to be perfect to be saved, and being trans was not part of that. And here I was a young college student, allowing myself to enjoy comedy that poked fun at the beliefs I had been taught to not only believe, but believe with reverence and seriousness. So at that time, I was going through a lot of transitions, in large part because of what I was studying. I was studying theology and scripture, and really kind of thinking about what I believed. It was a very different way for me to think about spirituality. But I was still tentative and still nervous. I felt like I needed to still believe those things. I needed to believe in the Bible, and I especially still needed to be Christian. The anxiety was still there from when I was a child, and even though I recognized the validity of criticizing the church, criticizing Christianity, I needed the community of the church and the assurance of Christian salvation. So there really was like a paradox for me, or this a little bit of a disconnect between what I was going through and what I needed to believe at that time, and how much I enjoyed Susie's comedy, and how much, that really was kind of poking fun at religion and the Bible. But listening to her poke fun at some of the more absurd aspects of religion provided for me a safe way to explore doubt or questions, and even to explore, as Susie puts it, bless for me, bless for you, bless for everybody in the room. It was safe for me in a way because it wasn't me. I wasn't doing it. It was someone else. And it was comedy. It was lighthearted and silly. I personally was not in a place to be able to question my faith so boldly, but I was able to laugh about it. And even if I still held on to much of my beliefs, I was able to sit in that cognitive dissonance longer because it was funny. Susie Ezzy Izzard provided a safe place to question religion by framing the doubts and critiques of beliefs in the absurd and in the goofy. I do want to recognize for a moment, however, that was safe and cathartic for me and what I needed at that time. But what I needed just a few years prior would have been very different. It can be a very painful experience to hear someone making jokes about what you hold dear, especially spiritual beliefs. So even though at that time in my life, I needed to be able to explore those ideas and comedy helped me through it, because that's what comedians do. So they can help us wrestle with complex ideas. They help us think out loud as a society. So here's where I think Mary Poppins comes in. At the beginning of Mary Poppins, we see Bert doing a little physical comedy with his crazy instruments and contraptions and his like silly song. And then he even transitions to doing crowd work. You know, he starts teasing his audience. But then he stops suddenly in the middle of that. And he looks around and he sings softly. Winds in the east, mist coming in, like something is brewing, about to begin. I'm sorry, I'm not a good comedian or singer, but comedians can literally act as social wind vanes, giving us clues about larger social conversations or societal change. Susie was a little ahead of the curve, talking about gender. But today there are many trans, gender fluid, gay, lesbian, and queer comedians that are all helping us talk about identity, sexuality, and gender. And they all start with their own experiences. Here's where it can get tough for comedians and entertainers, though. When it comes to social change or larger social conversations, it can go one of three directions for comedians. There are comedians that try to remain neutral, comedians that will resist the change, and comedians that lead the way. Understandably, there are many comedians and entertainers that try to remain neutral. Those are the comedians that aren't going to get too political. They're going to stick with silly stories and not get controversial. And that's okay, up to a point. They're entertainers, and just like us, they need a job. They need to enjoy what they do, and they need to make a livelihood, which is not easy in comedy. And those comedians still have a place in society, and they have a place on my screen. I still enjoy just random comedy about whatever, just about life. We should all be able to enjoy life and enjoy a good laugh. Life is hard, and it is very understandable to indulge in a little escapism, just like I did when I was little. Then there are comedians that will use their platform to complain about social change or what I would call progress. When political correctness was making its way through society, there were tons of comedians that complained about how annoying or how hard it was. And they, resisted changing their language and having to feel like they were walking on eggshells. And it hasn't changed much. Now there are comedians who complain about cancel culture or the Me Too movement or about being woke. The winds of society are changing, and unfortunately, many comedians don't want to change with it. So I'm going to take a little moment to pause here. There's something about the process of writing that makes me tend to forget things like words and phrases, common things that I've said a million times. The moment I try to put them into a sermon or into words, they're just gone. For a long time while writing this, I could not think of the term wind vane. I know what a wind vane is. It shows it like multiple times in Mary Poppins. Literally, there's like a wind vane just changing direction. But I couldn't remember the term. So I even had to do weird Googling to figure it out. But worse than that was trying to remember an idiom. Idioms are common phrases that we use as a society, but they're tricky because they are often obscure or kind of random, and they remind you of other idioms, so you start mixing metaphors. So I was trying to ask other people to help me remember, and I was trying to describe the phrase that we use when, like there's like a machine or wheels are turning together and then something comes in and it stops it. It disrupts it. And describing that to other people did not help. Like so many people were just looking at me like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And then finally, after like a week, the word wrench just like came to my mind. I'm like, wrench, that's it. The phrase is throw a wrench in the works. And so I was so happy. I'm like, that's what I wanted to remember. And so I excitedly texted Tom. I'm like, I remembered it. But for those of you who don't know, Tom is a mechanical engineer. So he was deeply offended at the very thought. Yeah, I'm kidding. He was very nice. But I bring up the idiom, throw a wrench in the works, because that's what is happening with the comedians who complain about society changing. They are comfortable with how the machine is going and changing language, changing who we can make fun of, changing the expectations of comedy and entertainment. That all just throws a wrench in their machine. It disrupts their world, and it's frustrating for them. It's frustrating, for society as a whole. Change is hard, but it is necessary. Mary Poppins isn't really about Mary Poppins. It's about the Banks family, and more so about Mr. Banks. He comes along at the beginning of the movie singing the song, "The Life I Lead," and it's all about how great his life is, how he is the lord of his castle, how he leads his life with a firm but gentle hand, apparently, and everything is as it should be down to the very minute. But the entire time he's singing that, his wife is trying to get his attention. She is trying to tell him that something is wrong, something is not as it should be, and that something is that the children are gone. Which is kind of a big deal. This theme carries throughout the entire film. Everyone around Mr. Banks is trying to get him to listen, trying to tell him something is wrong. His wife, his kids, the complaining servants, even the eccentric neighbor that pretends that he's like on a ship and is setting off cannons like randomly, or not randomly, on the hour specifically. He yells after Banks, trying to warn him that something is wrong, and he ignores him. Everyone in the family has to tiptoe around Mr. Banks and pretend that it's all working, to their own detriment, and especially to the detriment of the children. But Mary Poppins, she does not do that. She does not play along. Instead of prioritizing the lord of the castle, Mr. Banks, she prioritizes the children. And then something great happens. they start to have fun. They start to experience joy, and they're excited, they're happy. They even try their hand at telling jokes. You know, a man with a wooden leg named Smith. What's the name of the other leg? They're so cute as they giggly tried to tell it. This all, of course, turns Mr. Banks' world upside down. It disrupts the unhealthy pattern that was happening. And it all comes to a head when he tried to take the kids to the bank and they would not give up their tumpins, and it caused a whole disruption. And that's what led up to the point right before the clip that we watched. And this disruption is what happens in systems. It's what happens in families, in organizations, and in society. Everything will seem on the surface like it's flowing along smoothly. But in doing so, it's often at the expense of those on the margins. The children were on the margins of the family, and they were hurting. Mary Poppins stopped the unhealthy pattern to help the children. She threw a wrench in the machine. And now, Mr. Banks' world has been turned upside down. He's experiencing the chaos and the dysfunction that everyone else has already been experiencing. And he is not happy about it. Just before the clip that we watched, he demands an explanation from Mary Poppins. He's trying to use his pattern of authority as an authority figure to get her to fall in line, what he expects. But Mary Poppins, she's not having it. She does not go with the flow like everyone else. She does not give him the explanation that he demands. This is when we get the lovely line. First of all, I would like to make one thing clear. I never explained anything. And then she walks away, which is great. So to Mr. Banks, she's the problem. That's what he's talking about in the clip. He blames her for everything. Mr. Banks complains to Bert, "You know what I think? It's that woman, Mary Poppins. From the moment she stepped into the house, things began to happen to me." Oh, poor Mr. Banks. He's having a hard time. But this clip is what I found so interesting. I did not realize the significance of this scene until I rewatched it with this sermon in mind. Mary Poppins does not change Mr. Banks' mind. Bert does. Bert is the one that helps him see the value of what Mary Poppins is doing. Bert sings the song, "A spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down." And while he's singing it, he has his back turned to Mr. Banks and he's smirking to us in the audience, letting us know in on the joke that he actually is a fan of Mary Poppins, but Mr. Banks doesn't know it. You know, and then Mr. Banks accuses Mary Poppins of tricking him into taking the kids to the bank, which is true, actually. She does do that. She tricks him. So he has a point, but Bert flips the script on him. Like many comedians, Bert was very creative with his language and his approach. He starts out using the language that Mr. Banks was familiar with, you know, that he used himself to describe what he does and his role in the family and the importance of his work. And in doing so, Bert does a couple things. He shows empathy for Mr. Banks, making him feel like he's understood. He plays into his ego a little bit. He boosts him up. But all the while, he's actually highlighting the fact that the children need their father and childhood is short. Mr. Banks needed to come to terms with some difficult truths about his relationship with his family. What Mary Poppins was doing was needed, but it was too bitter a pill for Mr. Banks to swallow. He couldn't hear it from her, probably because of sexism, but that's, you know, it was her but also because it's difficult. She was the one disrupting the pattern. But Bert is the comedic relief throughout the entire film. He is silly. He's got a bunch of crazy side projects. He dances like a penguin. And in the end, it is Bert's lighthearted and creative approach that helped break through to Mr. Banks. It was the sweetness that Mr. Banks needed. Bert was the one that provided the spoonful of sugar. Comedian Daniel Sloss does a similar thing in his special X. Sloss is a Scottish comedian. If you ever want to watch his comedy, be aware that he is very irreverent and swears a lot, and so it is very fun. But parents, please watch first before showing to your minors. Sloss, in his special X, through his own admission, has a pattern with his specials, not just in general. He spends the majority of his special doing regular stand-up routine. But then, towards the end, he adjusts his tone and he addresses a more serious topic. In his special Dark, he talks about the death of his disabled sister when he was a child. In his special Jigsaw, he talks about the unhealthy expectation that romantic relationships complete us. And throughout X, Sloss addresses another topic. In his comedy, he jokes about sexuality, the differences between men and women, the toxic masculinity, which he admits he learned is a problem for him. And he attributes some of these problems to an unhelpful and incomplete sex education curriculum when he was young that kept boys and girls apart, and it resulted in ignorance all around. So Sloss unfortunately did not have the OWL program that we have. A little plug. The serious section of his special begins by telling the story of one of his male friends assaulting one of his female friends. In the wake of that horrible event, Sloss had to come to terms with two harsh realities. The first, that the women in his life did not trust him enough to tell him about all the sexism and predatory behavior that they endure on a regular basis. And the second harsh reality was that he let this happen. In his words, if I'm being 100% honest with myself, were there signs in my friend's behavior over the years towards women that I ignored? The answer is yes. That is on me until the day I die. Sloss disclosed his intentions of getting the men on his side throughout the show at the beginning in the comedy by talking about how, sex is confusing, how toxic masculinity hurts men too, how it can be hard when you are a good man, but you're being lumped in with genuine predators. But he does not let the men off the hook so easily. He pushes back on the idea that if you're not part of the problem, you're part of the solution, because that is not true. You have to be actively trying to address the problem. Sloss is putting pressure on the men in his audience who, like him, are failing the women in their lives and who need to change. Now, there are comedy purists out there who would probably argue that what Sloss did in that special wasn't comedy. But since Sloss is a man, I don't know that he actually received nearly as much negative feedback as Hannah Gadsby. Hannah Gadsby received the same critique for her special, Nanette. Gadsby is a lesbian comedian who presents more masculine or gender fluid, and Nanette was meant to be her goodbye to comedy, but ironically, it ended up launching her career. Since then, she has had 2 more individual specials and a special that focused on highlighting comedians who are transgender or non-binary. That special is called Gender Agenda, and it came to be after Gatsby, who claiming that she bit the hand that feeds her by criticizing Netflix, the platform that produced and streams all of her specials. She criticized them after they aired a special from another comedian who attacked trans people. Gatsby did this because she takes the position that if comedians target their comedy towards others, or even towards themselves, it should be punching up at the systems of power and not punching down at those on the margins of society. In Nanette, Gatsby talks about how prior to the special, she had built her comedy career on self-deprecating humor, which is what a lot of comedians do. But this was self-deprecating humor that was rooted in self-hatred, that she had internalized as a lesbian who grew up in Tasmania, where homosexuality was illegal until 1997, which is not that long ago. She had learned to stifle her true story by turning it into jokes. Comedy, which was supposed to be her refuge from trauma, actually kept her in it. It kept her from sharing the whole story, a story that a young Hannah needed to hear, that others need to hear. Comedy can heal, but it can also wound. It is not inherently neutral or good. We have to be careful with comedy, just like we have to be careful with any public discourse. I remember the Monica Lewinsky jokes that targeted a young female intern instead of the man in power who abused his position. I remember the jokes that trivialized domestic violence. I remember the homophobic jokes and the transphobic jokes. I remember the fat jokes that made me feel like I needed to hide my body and that I was not worthy of love. I remember the racist jokes that taught me to distance and to other instead of teaching me to love and connect. I am not a better person because of those jokes. I am not better because of the harm that they have done. That harm that cannot and will not be trivialized simply because it's a joke. I do not expect comedians to be perfect. All of the comedians that I have mentioned today are simply human beings, just like the rest of us. And I cannot and will not say that I agree with every word that they have said. But I will say that it is not unsurprising to me that most of my favorite comedians are my favorite because often they are not funny. They take the time to tell their stories and to be vulnerable in the midst of the humor, and it makes their message and the laughter that much more powerful. Gatsby so tenderly and so powerfully puts it, what I wouldn't give to have heard a story like mine. She continues, laughter is not our medicine. Stories hold our cure. Laughter is just the honey that sweetens the bitter medicine. Comedians that use their stories to build connections. Comedians that use their voice to call us to be a better society. That use their creativity to help us envision a new way. Those are the comedians whose laughter is helping us heal. They are the ones worth listening to. Thank you.
remain standing as we extinguish our chalice. I invite you all to say with me our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this chalice, but not the warmth of love, the light of truth, nor the energy of action. We hold each other in our hearts until we meet again.
You might go ahead and take a seat. We are going to close our service by singing the final song from Mary Poppins, Let's Go Fly a Kite. The kite in the film is a metaphor for a family that is healing. Mr. Banks spends the night mending the broken kite so he can do what his children have been wanting him to do the entire time. Have fun with them. What a beautiful image. A patched up kite soaring high in the wind. We have healing to do in society. And thankfully, we have humor to sweeten the medicine. May your day be filled with the sweetness of laughter.
With tuppence for paper and string,